The following is an excerpt from the book Experiences of Thought by Anthony Kahn, available now on Amazon.com and Kindle. Outside the box, gaming the system. Let us take a breather at this point and consider something recreational, a brief escape from reality in a colorful video game world. We shall sit down in a comfortable chair, turn on the computer, and load up a vast fantasy world of eccentric characters and endless quests. It is a good way to lose a few hours and be something that we could never be in the real world. But as you stare at the screen, completely absorbed in the sights and sounds of the game, what is really going on under the bonnet? Where is the vast world that you are exploring, and of what is it made? When you downloaded the game, you had to wait for the many gigabytes of graphical assets and sound files to amass on your computer's hard drive. The gigantic world that you couldn't wait to explore was all encoded into streams of zeros and ones, the atoms of your new virtual universe. When your computer is turned off, that is indeed all that the world is. It is only when you turn the computer on and boot up the game that the magic happens. Those zeros and ones are converted into 8-bit integers or larger data units that give each pixel on your screen a specific color, and into waveforms that cause your speakers to vibrate and produce the necessary sound. Dots on a two-dimensional screen and vibrating diaphragms within your speakers are transformed by your mind into a three-dimensional world. There are different types of video games, of course, and some are more linear whilst others are described as open world. But some of the most interesting from a philosophical point of view utilize something called procedural generation. The interesting thing about procedural generation is that it can encode colossal worlds on breathtaking scales into a surprisingly small number of zeros and ones. The logic centers around mathematical equations that characterize probability distributions, which can then be drawn upon at random to inform variables that define scenery elements and sounds. The surface elevation of an entire planet, for instance, might be generated by randomly drawing longitude and latitude coordinates, as well as a corresponding radius for each, and then interpolating between each point. You don't actually need to encode a whole world's worth of pixels. You only need to encode the equations that are required to build it. Procedural generation is a potential window into how our own universe might work, because our own universe is surprisingly simulatable. So much of science revolves around mathematical models, i.e. equations, that describe physical phenomena. If we can accurately formulate the equation which governs some physical process, we can make future predictions and simulate the system through time. Look no further than the Weather Channel to see the fruits of such investigation. So does the ease with which we can simulate our reality in any way imply that it too is actually none other than a procedural generation? It is tantalizing to think about. Could the logic that underpins everything about our existence actually be the scripted language of a clever computer program? Before we go too far down the path towards science fiction, we needn't think of ourselves as characters on the computers of some advanced civilization of godly programmers. Rather, it is enough to simply note that there are strong parallels between our use of procedural generation to create simulations, and the way that mathematics seems to describe everything that we observe, even quantum mechanics, lying at the heart of our standard model of particle physics as it does, is built around probability distributions that are drawn from at random upon observation. Perhaps the amount of information it takes to build a universe such as ours is not quite so large as one might expect. With enough equations and enough variables, the possibilities of creation are almost limitless. Regardless, the information is not but zeros and ones if there is no one at the computer playing the game. All power ultimately resides with the gamer. On a whim, they may cause their character to look in the other direction and half of the universe disappears.